so I just finished this box and I'm going to show you how to make it today. So please like and subscribe below to keep up to date with me. It would mean a lot because I am a new channel and I want to keep being able to make these creative things for y'all. So this box, it is actually made out of plastic bags. It feels super squishy. And it's just supposed to be like, I'll show you an example of what I was going for, but Target has these things, these like little, I don't want to call them wicker, they're kind of like wicker, they're kind of rickrack, I don't know. For some reason I was thinking that they were like this really dark brown, but it turns out that they were this tan brown. So I painted several times, but you'll get to see. The one thing that I didn't show in the video that I would recommend, and I'm just going to tell this to you now as an intro, is that inside, you can see I'm keeping money. This is where I keep my tips for my other job. Inside, I left it kind of blank. What would be really neat, and what I recommend you guys do, is actually use chalk paint on the inside. That way you can keep track of whatever you put in here. That is if you're going to use it, me, for your tips. So yeah. Sorry, I'm having a lot of fun squishing this. It looks like rickrack, but it squishes like a squishy. Anyway, let's get started.
So I started out with this wooden box as a base, and I'm just sanding it down. I don't have sandpaper, so this is with a pedicure tool. As long as you haven't used it before, that's quite alright. It worked pretty much just as well as sanding tool. It was a little bit more difficult to sand, but I did it. I would recommend sandpaper though. Anyways, yeah, I'm just going to sand that down so that it'll take the glue and the paint a lot better. Because the first thing I did was paint everything, and then I started gluing things down. By the way, I cut off a lot of footage of me sanding. So now we're at the painting, and I'm just trying to get a good solid color. I believe it was a yellow ochre, but like a bit more white. So I'm just mixing white into yellow ochre and testing it out until I get the color that I want. Now that I've got a base color down, I'm just gluing on my pieces of plastic bag. I believe I show you later, but what I do to get those strips is that I cut the plastic bags in half lengthwise, and then I just curl them in my hands. And you can see I'm using Mod Podge to start, but I do end up going back with a hot glue gun. I think to start off, a hot glue gun would be better. Just make sure that your temperature isn't too high. Or to put it on the glue before you put the plastic down. Because plastic does melt, so you want to be really careful with that. But yeah, I'm just starting out with the front, and you can see some of these are popping up, so you might have to be a little bit dexterous with your hands. But, and that's part of why I used hot glue later. But I'm just trying to get a good base for it, and I'm varying the sizes of them too to give it more of a natural feel. So here's it after the Mod Podge dried. And you can see it's kind of on the side there, and my space is very messy right now. Please ignore that. But I'm just twisting it around, trying to make it go around the hook right. So you can see me going back through it right now with hot glue just because the Mod Podge wouldn't stick. Now Mod Podge does still have its place in this project, and I'll show you that later. But yeah, as a glue in this particular case, hot glue was proving to be better. just taking the remainder that I had on the plastic bag from before and just stretching those out so that they go around the side. They are all a little too small to go around the back. I'm off camera. Great. Classic. Sorry about that. So you can see that I'm taking them as far as they will go, at least to the edge, and I'll fix the way it interacts with the back later. Luckily, Rattan, which I think is the name for the look that we're going, isn't a perfect surface unless you're going for a more woven feel or a more wicker feel, in which case I would suggest braiding the plastic bags. But for Rattan, it has some of these edges that aren't straight or aren't perfect, so I'm less worried about that. And you can see that I'm still rolling up the pieces of plastic as I go. And I'm just doing the same thing that I did with the front, with cutting the bags in half and curling them around and leaving large edges. I don't think I highlighted that or mentioned that before, but make sure to leave space on both sides. So put the plastic bags in the middle of the box. That way you'll have room for the sides. Sides. I'm just kind of gluing everything together and just kind of crowding them in and pinching it so that the rolls of plastic are closer together than the front. And there's some overlapping, but once you paint it, it's not going to be noticeable at all. I'm just trying to get it to fit, kind of like a puzzle. You want to use the layers that are on the bottom closest to the box first, and then kind of use the upper layers to blend. And you can see that I'm using a pencil to push the glue in. That's because when you do this project, you have to be careful about hot glue. With the plastic melting and all, there's a high potential to burn you. So be careful and use something to poke the hot glue and the plastic bag in a little bit more. On the lid. And that's pretty much the same as the technique that I gave you before, is to hot glue the bags in the middle and then with extra space on both sides, and then fold down and glue, with the one difference being that you're actually going to chop off the excess of bags once you give them a chance to dry, so that it doesn't get in the way of the box opening and closing. I did something unusual on the opening and locking mechanism too. When you're doing this, just be sure that your box can open and close. So here I'm just cutting off the excess on the sides of the lid, making sure that it'll fit. And it doesn't matter if a little bit of the wood shows, because it's going to be in that tone anyway. The important thing is to get it to close. So here I am. I'm just trying to get plastic bags onto the center of the top. And I'm being really careful for the opening and closing mechanism so that it can still work. And I'm using a mixture of Mod Podge and hot glue just to make sure the hot glue holds it in the immediate future, but the Mod Podge makes it stick for the future, for ongoing times. And I'm just doing it with the edges being in the center, and then having excess go off. And I think I'm going to end up with just a larger lid by wrapping the plastics from the front onto the sides over top of what I had previously done. So none of this turned out being on camera, and I'm sorry about that. But what I did for the rest of the lid was that I moved the little mechanism for opening and closing so that it wasn't in the way, and to check to make sure that it fit correctly to go over the plastic bags. And then I just added the plastic bags with the twisting method from before, same as the rest of the box that wasn't on the lid. It's pretty straightforward. And then you can see partially on here that I'm just putting some Mod Podge on the lid sides that I had previously put the plastic bags on, and now I'm just twisting it the other way. If you want a really interesting look, you could also space out those tops and then kind of weave it through, but I didn't do that. But it's the same method that I've been using this whole time, with the twirling of the plastic bags and the fitting onto the side and the gluing. So here's the most important step of the entire video. The most important step. I'm painting a layer of Mod Podge, a thick layer of Mod Podge, onto the plastic bags. I started off with a spray, but then I realized it wasn't enough, and I put the original recipe Mod Podge on there. And this is because if you paint acrylic paints onto plastic bags, it's going to chip off like that. So the Mod Podge is to make it sticky. And you need that stickiness if it's going to look like anything other than a wooden box with plastic bags all over it. And to paint it, I'm just going to use a white base and then paint over it. This gets a lot of coats of paint, so that may have been a waste, but at the time, it seemed like a good idea. And if y'all skip the part in the middle with the different shades of brown that make it look a little muddy, and go straight to the correct color at first, then yes, you should paint it white first so that you have a solid base to paint over. So I sped this up to make it brief, but this is the brown that I started out with. And because I did so many layers and so many coats, I'm just going to show you the first coat of brown. But because I did so many layers of coats of different shades of brown, if you do that, it'll get really muddy and kind of ugly looking fast. You want 2 tones at most. And you want to save your colors, because I kept running out and trying to approximate it. But in the end, I did find out that the original that I was basing off of was beige anyway, so I kind of started over. But I wanted you to see the whole process here. So how I fixed this was that I just went over the brown with several layers of beige. I kind of dry brushed it right out of the container. And yeah, this is the first layer, so of course it looks a little pooey, especially because whenever you use a lighter color over a darker color, it's going to need more coats to just get more color over it. But I actually like how it turned out in the end with having a little bit of brown show through, but really not much at all. And this color kind of reminds me of a toasted marshmallow, which I love because I'm working as a barista for my other job, and it just kind of makes me think of a s'mores latte that we sell. And so it makes me happy to see the marshmallow color that it turned out. This is just me doing a second layer of the marshmallow color. So I'm not sure how well that's going to show up on video, but at some point, I think it's around this point, yeah, I'm mixing a little bit of brown in there to give it kind of that tan, to give it that marshmallowy multiple colors there, because I do want 2 tones, and I just dry brush that on top to give it some low lights, make it look a little bit more interesting and three-dimensional than just having one shade.
So this is the finished box. I'm very happy with how the top of it looks. And the sides are alright. Y'all, I did this off camera, but I just went ahead and used a sealant all the way around these seams here and in the back because it just keeps taking it off. Like the paint keeps coming off and revealing the plastic bag. I think what I should have done is make these smaller. Like I cut plastic bags in half. I should have cut them in fourths and then make a smaller, thinner layer. Kind of like there's some on the top that are really thin. I think it'll look really good with a thinner layer, but when y'all are making this, just be careful for the sides. It's better to show wood and have to paint some wood than it is to have it be all sticky like that. But for the most part, I like the color. You know, it kind of reminds me of a toasted marshmallow, which is kind of perfect because that's how I like my flavor of coffee. And this holds my tips from my job making coffee. So it really is perfect for that. And I really like how it turned out. And if you poke it, it doesn't feel like plastic bags, but it does feel kind of soft in places. So it's actually really fun to poke. But yeah, this is my box. Hope y'all enjoyed the tutorial. And as always, happy crafting.